Welcome to Fiscal Integrity Group, your ticket to bookkeeping greatness.
Hi, it's Sandy back here for another knowledge nugget. Glad you could join us for your responsibilities as a bookkeeper. One piece of advice I wish to offer for you as a bookkeeper, and that is be the best you can possibly be. The days are fast leaving us when a business owner throws an untrained person into the position. This means it is soon going to become a very competitive world in the bookkeeping industry. It doesn't matter if you have been bookkeeping for 15 or more years. We have an entirely new generation of certified bookkeepers coming into the mix with lots of energy that are chomping at the bit to get started. All they need is experience, and they are off to a long and fruitful career. Let's take a look at what's in this webinar. Of course, I want to talk about the various things that make you accountable, and I want to discuss the status of today's bookkeeping, and then get right into 7 different types of responsibilities. And I'd like to end this one with a story that I have that I think you might find intriguing. Let's begin with your responsibilities. When it comes to small or large business owners, the bookkeeping is far too important to put a non-bookkeeper in place. Having said that, here in Canada, that situation is diminishing, but is still happening with small business owners. Spouses, teenagers, family, friends, and even a neighbor can be asked to take on the bookkeeping with no formal training. I guess the thinking is that it can't be rocket science to learn how to write checks and deposit money in the bank. Even with today's technology, some thinking is that the programs being used know exactly what to do with the debits and credits, right? Make sense? Well, not really. I recently had 2 people in separate workshops ask me, why do I need to learn debits and credits when the program does it for you? And this is what scares me. These are not the only people bookkeeping out in the field that really don't understand how debits and credits work. Now, in many countries, regulations are coming into play that bookkeepers just can't go out and buy an accounting program, buy a calculator, and watch a few YouTube videos and then call themselves a bookkeeper. Yikes, not only call themselves a bookkeeper, but open up their own practice with no formal experience. This is why regulations are starting to come into play in the bookkeeping field. It's time. Having said this, there is still a need for the bookkeeping skills to be much better. I have spoken to people in the United States, Australia, Canada, and United Kingdom, and it seems we are still having some issues raising the bar in the bookkeeping field even when there are regulations in place. For anyone wishing to expand on this, I would love to hear from you. I welcome your thoughts and your suggestions. I was recently speaking at a convention and asked the bookkeepers in the audience if they are hired on to clean up or rescue a set of books. 90% of these people put their hand up. What does that tell you? Yes, we still have some problems with skills in Canada. Therefore, if you're just getting into the game or you want to open up your own business, you have lots of room to be the best at what you do. Therefore, I want this webinar to spell out a bookkeeper's accountabilities to the business owner, the accountant, and the government. These responsibilities are worldwide. Sure, the sales tax, the payroll deductions, personal and corporate tax guidelines and schedules may be different from country to country, but the responsibilities are the same across the board. As bookkeepers, we are the ones diving into the detail activity of the business. We are the first level, the financial foundation, the centerpiece of the business pie. I have said this time and time again. Without the bookkeeping completed, the business owner, the accountant, financial planner, business coach, and even the corporate lawyer can't really do anything until they get the financials. See your value? We are the ones gathering the paperwork, posting it all into the system, and ensuring everything we do is as accurate as it can be. If we don't know something, because no one is expected to know everything, we need to be open to search for advice. That is the best way to learn. If I didn't know something, I wasn't afraid of asking the professionals, and it was also free. I have been in this for over 35 years, and I will confess I continue to learn something new every week. If you are not open to continue learning, then it is time to close the accounting program and call it quits. Bookkeeping and the technology that it comes with is forever and quickly changing. Next, I want to discuss 7 responsibilities that you should consider. First and foremost, number 1, know the government rules that pertain to your region. It doesn't matter what country you live in. Know what the government is expecting of you and the business owner. Here are a few examples. Charging sales tax and the rules or the sales tax percentage outside of your province, state, county, or local region. What are the rules to charge sales tax outside of your country? What if the business is importing products? Are there applicable taxes coming into the country? It is also important to note that all governments change their sales tax rates from time to time and add new ones. Keep up with the notices of when these changes occur. You may need time to set this new rate in your accounting program. Charging sales tax and remitting to the government. You do have to understand the process and the deadlines to do so. There are ramifications such as penalties and interest if paying a remittance late. Here in Canada, the penalty and interest varies depending on how late the remittance is. You can Google your government website for various penalties and interest in your region. As for Canada, we have the link in our templates form and links section. Now, it is important to note that a bookkeeper is in essence responsible to prepare the remittance on time. If it is in your job description or as a freelance bookkeeper you agreed to be responsible to make payment, then it is your responsibility to make the payment on time as well. Having said that, if the business owner hinders the bookkeeper by not providing the paperwork on time, or does not have the money to make payment in full, or any other reason that hinders a bookkeeper to properly prepare that remittance, it is now not the bookkeeper's responsibility or fault if penalties and interest occur. If you live in a country with multiple sales taxes per province, state, or region, you do need to know these obligations. For example, here in Canada, I would like to just say they didn't make it easy on us. We have HST, which is Harmonized Sales Tax, and it combines the provincial and federal sales taxes together. They're in some provinces, but not all. Therefore, these other provinces, which we call non-harmonized, we have 2 remittances to send to 2 separate entities. Instead of HST, it is called GST, which stands for Goods and Service Taxes, and PST, which is Provincial Sales Tax. We also have varying sales tax percentages from coast to coast, ranging from 5% to 15%, and a couple of provinces are tax on tax. See what I mean? Not exactly easy on us. How about the rest of you in other countries? Are there any governments out there that have made it a little easier? For us, where it gets tricky is providing services or products to other provinces or countries. This is where a bookkeeper needs to know their stuff for a particular set of instances. We do have a ton of rules that I get into more detail in the knowledge nugget called Sales Tax Rules. Mostly Canadian rules, but I bet there are similarities with other countries. Let's move on to number 2. It is also your responsibility to know the government obligations when it comes to employees, from properly deducting payroll taxes from their paychecks to remitting these deductions on time. Therefore, you do need to know the remittance schedule and deadlines. When it comes to year-end, how about preparing their employee slips? These are called T4s in Canada, W2s in the USA, P60 in the UK, etc., etc. I'm sure there's a different code in every country. There are lots of little hidden rules that bookkeepers should be aware of. For example, when is an employee deemed an employee or not deemed as an employee? Auditors look for this type of mistake. In essence, if someone works for a company for 40 hours a week and doesn't work for anyone else, that is deemed as an employee. When you have employees, in most countries, then come the workers' safety requirements. It varies to what it's called in many countries, but for the most part, it is workers' compensation for when an employee is injured on the job. There are also other taxes that are required when a business has employees. Here in Canada, we not only have to consider workers' compensation, but employer health tax, T5018s when we hire subcontractors, and T2200s if an employee has expenses. See, there is more to it than writing a paycheck and submitting the payroll deductions once a month. As a matter of fact, depending on how large your payroll is, you could be required to pay more than once per month. Just recently, a company was audited because they were using the wrong payment schedule, and it was really wreaking havoc on the government computer system. In the end, Revenue Canada owed $20,000 to the company. Now that's a new one. It's usually the other way around. Depending on who you are bookkeeping for and what industry, you need to know the obligations. If you are a freelance bookkeeper, you need to know that much more per client and per industry because some industries have even more rules. Number 3, bookkeep as if an audit is pending, which in fact, an audit is always pending. You just haven't received the notice yet. It may be coming sooner than you think or a few years away. Eventually, you will have to defend your postings. On a more consistent basis, you're defending them with the business owner and the accountant, but ultimately you need to defend them to an auditor because if they find money, then penalties and interest would occur. If these are hefty enough and lots of mistakes were made, it could mean your job or the loss of your client if you are a freelancer. Number 4, have you noticed so far I've only talked about the government? That is because it is your ultimate responsibility of getting it right. The business owner is in fact the one who is accountable to the business. Anything goes wrong, they are the one to blame and not the people they chose to put in place when it came to the bookkeeping or the year-end financials. Sure, the business owner didn't pick the right people and they can fire them, but ultimately they are the captain of the business and the one that goes down with the ship when it sinks. You and I, we get to jump ship and move on. We might feel bad about it, but we get to move on. Since I most certainly am the personality to feel bad about something if I did something wrong, I try to do my best not to do anything wrong. When it comes to business, the owner of a company is essentially a broker for the government. It is their duty to collect sales tax and employee deductions on behalf of the government and then remit those monies on a designated schedule. If they don't, then the government, let's say, has the ability to have their way with them. At times, the business owner wasn't paying attention and the sales tax money is spent growing the business or paying the bills. The government doesn't like when this happens, and it is a surefire way for the business to go under. Let's move on to number 5 and discuss your accountability to the business owner. This is where accuracy really comes into place. Most times business owners don't know or have the experience they should have to understand the bookkeeping. I have seen this so many times. Even business owners who used to be bankers got themselves into trouble because they knew the concept but really didn't know how the detailing worked. When you are hired on as a bookkeeper or a freelance bookkeeper, the business owner truly believes you know what you're doing and that you know even the basic fundamentals of government rules and you will keep them safe from the government. They expect when an audit occurs, your work will pass. And this is our stress as bookkeepers. Are we doing everything that we need to be doing? That is why it is important to know the rules and continue learning through online training, private training sessions, or even ask questions to the accountants. Here is one reason your processes need to be accurate, and I have an example for you. I found a bookkeeper posting all the credit card expenses to the income statement. Makes sense? That is correct. But they also posted the credit card payments to the income statement as well. Therefore, double posting the expenses. What they did was create an expense account called credit card payments. So now you can only imagine when the business owner reviewed the bottom line on the income statement, it showed a huge loss. The business owner was beside themselves because they thought they were doing well. The opposite can happen as well if you don't get your postings right. What happens if the income statement is showing too much of a profit? Errors have occurred but haven't been caught. Then the business owner heads off to spend money to grow the business with money they don't really have. See how inaccuracies can wreak havoc on a business owner. Moving on to number 6, how about your accountability to the accountant? If you are a freelance bookkeeper, accuracy means referrals, and this is how you can grow your business. When it comes to an accountant, it is the balance sheet that is the most important thing to ensure is accurate. We have had clients all over the world and had to work with controllers from large corporations. When dealing with the controllers, each and every time they worked the balance sheet first. If it is reconciled, then the numbers on the income statement are what they are. Well, for the most part, I have seen a few boo-boos that can state otherwise. Number 7. Some of you might be asking yourself, well, how do I know if I'm accurate as possible? So let's take a look at a few tips and tricks and see if we can build your confidence. A. Paperwork is paperwork. The government still wants to see all of it in an audit. Until that changes, don't let missing paperwork stay missing. Keep on the business owner to keep finding the missing paperwork. Now, I'm speaking of the many small business owners out there who hate organizing their paperwork. Don't get me wrong, there are many small business owners that are wonderful collecting it and passing it over to us bookkeepers. Therefore, I do want to label these people separately. B. Learn what an auditor is looking for. Then ensure your postings are keeping the business owner safe, and also keep your filing system simple and make sure it's available if an audit occurs. In Canada, the business owner is responsible to keep the paperwork for up to 7 full years. C. Here in Canada, when it comes to HST, we also have HST on purchases. This is called input tax credits, or ITCs. Here we get to deduct the HST paid on purchases from what we collected. But bingo, in an audit, the auditor is looking for ITCs that are overclaimed. My advice on this: always ensure that the ITC, or input tax credit, you posted ties back to the paperwork. Now, if receipts are missing from a credit card statement, for example, then take a look at the place of purchase on that statement. This will usually tell you if there is ITCs to account for or not. Having said this, push for the receipts. The government does not classify a credit card statement as a legitimate set of receipts. In an audit, they could disallow expenses posted if detailed receipts are not provided. D. Know what your allowable write-offs are for the industry you are posting for. This is a big one, and most certainly part of what an auditor is looking for. We have some, let me say, cheaters out there, people who stretch the definition of what is allowable. This is where you have to make your own decision to post in or not. E. Double check your work. Open up that general ledger and double check you posted where you intended to post. I don't know how many times I accidentally posted to computer assets when I was intending to post to computer expenses. Big difference. And it's really sticky fingers on a keyboard that gets me in trouble all the time. And I need to go to my GL to find my errors. If I don't do that, then I've got a problem. If you are using an accounting program that allows you to see your memo descriptions in the general ledger, then it is much easier to find your errors. It is okay that you make errors. We all make them. But it is not okay that you don't bother looking for them. Here's the story that I want to tell. And all I really want to do here is hit home to you how important accountability is. All of us that work for a living, we really work for one main reason, and that is to bring money into the household and live the life that we wish to live. But if you're not accountable to your bookkeeping, then there could be problems and you could lose that job if you're an employee, and that affects your livelihood. If you're a freelance bookkeeper, you could lose enough clients that will affect your business, which then in turn affects your livelihood. When we owned our bookkeeping practice, we had two mindsets. One was to increase sales, which would be increasing clients, and the second one was to keep them. And unfortunately, there was only one main reason why we had as many clients as we did, and that was because the business owner was not happy with the current employed bookkeeper or the freelance bookkeeper. Now, there was many reasons why, but again, the business owner was unhappy. Could have been due to errors that were happening and the bookkeeper was not educated enough to be able to find and fix them. It could have been because an audit occurred and there was penalties and interest and a lot of money owing at the end of that. And it also could have been that the business owner never knew where they stood with reports in their finances because they never got to see them. In any case, they were unhappy and they were looking to move on. And that's all I really want to say is I want to hit home how important accountability is because it can affect your livelihood. So that's all. I'm going to stop there. Let's head back to the last PowerPoint and finish up this knowledge nugget. In the end, be the greatest bookkeeper in your area by knowing your stuff. If you don't know something, start searching. You will sleep better at night knowing your skills are at the highest level. If you want to continue learning, that is why we will continue to pass on what we know. If you have something to pass on to us, we would be thrilled to collaborate with you. We are well versed in Canadian bookkeeping, but would love to hear from the bookkeepers all over the world. Until next time, keep crunching your numbers.
Fiscal Integrity Group, your home for the advancement of bookkeeping and bookkeepers.